Is anyone here from the RSPB? Oh, I can talk freely then. Because I don't know if anybody has seen the advert, not that I watch adverts on television very often, but that one just gets me. It's the lonely starling who's looking down onto a city devoid of any grass, of any trees, and it says, if there is no space for nature, there will be no nature. And I'm damned that they've got that, and this should be on there rather than the RSPB logo, because this is what we do in the forum. Is this the one that I'm meant to use? Yes. I vice chair this urban forum, the Man and Biosphere program from UNESCO, which is existed since the early 1990s. We are the only nation in the world to have an urban forum, Man and Biosphere Urban Forum. All the other nations have a national committee, which looks after the idea of biospheres. We're trying to infiltrate UNESCO from the bottom up, because they still haven't cottoned on to the fact that in 2009 we became, under the categorization of species, an urban species, which means that more than 50% of us live in cities and towns, and by 2030 it will be 80% of us. So the whole idea that a city can be a biosphere is still a bit alien to UNESCO, so we're working on it. And we have got our first, they don't know yet, but our first city biosphere has just got nominated, Brighton and Hove, as a biosphere just a few months ago. So that's what we're about. As a way of personal introduction, what I tend to do with my life and my raison d'etre really is to get people and nature closer together. I'm essentially a practitioner, although I'm also an academic, but I prefer my practitioner life than my academic life, but I have to live with both. I work with the grain of nature as a health professional and an educator to get people to be healthier through developing a sense of space, a space probably as well, and to develop pro-environmental behaviour change. And I practice I practice eco-health, ecotherapy and eco-coaching, which some of you might not have heard of, some might. They're all forms of green social engineering in some way. Today, I'm more going to look at some of the case studies that I'm involved with in collaborative work with various initiatives, looking at how national parks, NHS land, and generally community green spaces can be not just a health resource, but also meet government targets. I don't know if you've heard, there's a bill still in white paper form called the Wellbeing of our future nation, of our future, I've forgotten the name, but anyway, it's a white paper and it will become a green paper in January. And it actually looks at sustainability and health both being met as targets. For the first 25 years of working within the NHS and then 10 subsequently as an NHS educator, my job was to promote health literacy, which is what it says. It's being able to make decisions that achieve good health outcomes. But the last 15 years, I've turned into a green health literacy buff, hopefully. And health literacy is fostered by many forces, health systems, education systems. We know that in the ecosystem services, the cultural part of it is, includes health. But green health literacy, it's actually encompasses a sustainable mindset, and it's supported by many policies by the World Health Organization and also by an initiative or movement which is well known and adhered to in other countries, not so much in this country, which is eco-health. And what the eco-health initiative says is that the health of our whole ecosystem, not just public health, which often forgets the idea that, you know, we live in an ecosystem and we are part of that ecosystem as people. It's the whole ecosystem that we are responsible for if we want to be healthy. And so eco-health or ecosystem health is everybody's business. And what eco-health says, eco-health philosophy says, is that everyone is responsible right across the disciplines and walks of life. So the dentist, the engineer, the farmer, the NHS manager, the scientist, and the indigenous citizen, i.e. Joe and Joanne Blogg, we're all responsible, and it's our business, all our business, to make sure that our ecosystem is healthy. So what I'm also about is developing this idea of green prescriptions. So practitioners in medicine or in health referring people to work with the grain of nature, actually work with the grain of nature, not just go and sit in it, for their health, and refer to services which already exist. The important part here is the reciprocity. So people improve their health, but they're also tending nature. And actually there's some wonderful developments across a number of projects. If you're in London and you happen to be in Kensington and Chelsea, go and stroll through the Meanwhile Wildlife Garden, which is maintained by people with mental health problems. It's a mind project. It works in collaboration with the borough, and their whole reason for being is to maintain and manage a wildlife habitat in a small part of a London park. I'm also at the forefront of a new development which came from running a conference, organising a conference with one of the national parks, the Snowdonia National Park in Wales, which is where I happen to live, lucky me. And the conference was so successful that the delegates wanted to create a forum, which will soon become a group that will look for a constitution and funding to develop the whole idea that national park systems need to be considered more upfront in their health provision values, that they already have these values, but they're not quite there with raising awareness of it. So that's the conference that we had last year, last April. Since then, we are looking for funding and have developed a whole set of workshops and courses for the public, for health managers and health staff, for teachers, for local government, for anyone who needs to look at how national parks can provide health benefits. That's Art and Nature for Wellbeing is one course. We've got one on play and wellbeing for children, playing in parks, creating landscape labyrinths, and many, many others as a whole programme, which we hope will run for 3 years with pending funding. We have a yearly conference, which if you'd like to come to, you're very welcome, 21st to the 24th of April in North Wales, beautiful part of the country. And I'm also on the task force at the Healthy Park, Healthy People movement, which started in Australia quite a few years ago now, 2008, 2009. I think we had our first Healthy Park, Healthy People Congress in 2010. The scope of the task force is that all parks, not just protected areas, should have a focus on health and well-being. And there's a book being written, which is an international book, and a living online document of case studies. The membership is international, multidisciplinary, multicultural, multi-development stage, I suppose. And the IUCN has adopted those guidelines, and there are 2 more conferences that you might be interested in attending. They're a bit far away, but one is in Sydney, the other one in Atlanta. More local to the UK, I'm very closely involved with the NHS Forest model. Has anybody heard of the NHS Forest model? probably just my colleague Liz. Right. NHS Forest is an idea created by the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare. It's nothing to do with the NHS. The NHS is actually being targeted here to become more inclusive with their green spaces, which they already have. So this is Coventry University Hospital, which is one of the NHS Forest, and I'm trying to look for the you can see this bit here, is the green area, which the photos refer to. It's a large NHS Forest site. The NHS Forest, the aims are simply to encourage greater cohesion between the sites that are mainly NHS, but can also be other care providers and the local community, to have projects that will allow people into those green spaces to do things such as growing vegetables, to use as a therapeutic space, and to not leave spaces unused or turn them into car parks, essentially. This is Doncaster Mental Health Hospital. They planted, as you can see, that green belt by the main road. They planted about 1,000 trees, and that space, which was unused almost, is now become very much a public space where people go and do all sorts of things. Kids join in with arts and projects, and people walk their dogs, and there's community organisations going there, and there's all sorts happening which wasn't happening before. This is a GP surgery, which in the middle, the photo in the middle, you can see it didn't really have much in the way of a green space, but they'd started planting trees. And what else they did as well was to incorporate the local ancient woods, Frithwood woods, into a circular walk, which includes the village green and the surgery and other amenities. And they turned it into a health route and health walk, and they actually encouraged people to go on this app called Couch to 5K, and they record, the practice nurse actually records people's walking distances, mainly for people who are inactive, to try and encourage them. But essentially what they're also doing is getting involved with being in the village and having social connections and giving some of their time and getting interested generally in being outdoors. This is the first NHS Forest site in Wales, and I actually directly project managed this. It was a good idea of one of the GPs 26 years ago to buy a piece of land, landscape it, and then it remained unused for 26 years. It's right in the middle of the village. People go past and they've said to me, I've lived here for 13 years, I never knew this was here. That's how much people take notice. But now we've had an open day, we've rebuilt things, we've got the children coming in, and that's the open day with people coming in who, many of them didn't know they could use the space. It's now a well-used space. This is a leisure centre in Pwllheli, again in Wales. It's a disused bowling green at the back of the health centre, which is now no longer like that because it's got a small orchard of fruit trees, Welsh heritage fruit trees. That's the GP there planting one of the trees. It has a polytunnel, raised beds, greenhouse, you name it. And it also fits into this national exercise referral schemes, which GPs already have at their disposal to refer to leisure centres for people for exercises, specific exercises for recovery from specific problems. And now they've got the extra added outdoor exercise attached to that through the NHS Forest. I've also been approached by the National Trust, who've now decided they want to work with GPs locally and turn some of their sites into NHS Forest sites. All it takes is to plant one tree to justify becoming an NHS Forest site, so it doesn't take much. It just, the difficult part, as I'm finding out as project manager for Primaris, is getting people involved, particularly the GPs in some cases. But that's nature. So the fundamental connections with what we're talking here today about is really that what I'm involved with, and all those case studies are about community engagement, are about public health and well-being, but they're also about a capital value. I don't know if you've come across the concept of mental capital before. It is, the other way people know it is the 5 ways to well-being. And it actually says that these 5 activities, which are very simple, easy activities, and I've actually put the plate there because it fits into the cliche of the 5 a day, actually achieve these outcomes here at the bottom: resilience, self-esteem, cognitive capacity, emotional intelligence. It is a project, a research project by the Government Office of Science, who commissioned the Foresight Group, or Foresight Project, to do this research. And what they looked at is what I call social health, not just mental, physical, and psychological, but the whole social health, the quality of life, people being able to contribute effectively to society and experience high quality of life. And those outcomes are that if people are more flexible and efficient at learning, which actually in nature, if you look at these, you're naturally active when you're out there. You naturally connect with people. It makes you take notice because, there'll always be something that fascinates you. You naturally are keen to give some of your time or do something, and it naturally helps you to learn. So if you look, people being more efficient at learning and higher cognitive ability, their emotional intelligence grows, social skills and resilience grows. And what that produces is people that are more keen to become involved. So why is it a capital value to have those capabilities? It's because they're personal and public resources. They can be built on their economical viability, and so they're going to enhance definitely public health, and in my case, eco-health, and feel psychologically and socially as well. And the reciprocity in all this is that when people become involved, and I can tell you all sorts of quotes, for example, from that conference at the National Park, I got asked to run a course as a practitioner for people with mental health problems, one of the local charities who supports people with serious mental health problems, in art and ecotherapy. So we did that course in the grounds of the National Park, and part of the course was for them to clear a bed which needed clearing. It was full of weeds, and replant it. And over the 8 weeks they did that. And at the end of that course, they're now going back willingly once a month to tend that piece of the National Park that they actually have ownership of now as volunteers and as park users. And one of them said to me, when I came, I was interested, and he was very much into photography, taking photos of everything. He says, but now I actually take notice without being behind the camera. I'm actually looking at nature with a whole different approach. And that's why I want to come back here every month to do some of this, because this really excites me. And this is some of the examples. So I think green prescriptions, and I'm biased anyway, are win-win public health interventions. All these things are free, or if not free, they're certainly cheap, or cheaper than some medical interventions. They actually have proven outcomes, ability to learn, better memory, attention, higher level of social connection, which we know. Even now, we're told that loneliness in people's life is an indicator for illness. They're cheap, they're free, and they're available. So there is capital value, and I won't go into all the policies and all the statistics. I'm sure you all know those. I'm just trying to raise the fact that there is much capital value in getting people outside and being healthy outdoors. And so really what I'm doing with all these initiatives is to encourage good practice. Thank you.
Thank you.